How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm also having good coffee
Are you? Awesome.
because empowered women empower women.
Yes. I love that saying. Mm.
So I actually loved the way you opened this. I have to say.
Does that
I think
resonate
you
with
knew
you?
that.
Yes.
um, so, I've been thinking, wrestling a lot with all of these questions, right? How do we identify ourselves as Pilates teachers? Like, what does that mean? I feel like for so long, Pilates teachers, we identified ourselves by exclusion, right? Pilates is not yoga.
Yes.
Pilates is not weightlifting.
It's not.
Pilates is
Yes.
not whatever. Pilates is not this. And then I feel like Joseph Pilates left us a fabulous legacy of work, right? And of apparatus and of, the people he trained. But in terms of leaving a great kind of business legacy, that didn't go so well, right? And the whole story of what happened to the Pilates studio leading up to Aris Isotoner buying it, leading up to Sean buying it, leading up to the lawsuits, and then the ultimate, class action lawsuit, making the name generic, shows that there was a little something missing in how he kind of dealt with his business, right? We know he had a great business. He primarily sold to high-end clientele. He spent time cultivating that. He did a lot of good press. You were talking about the visible versus invisible thing. Like, he knew that he had to have, Time Life level, Sports Illustrated level press, to get those people into his studio. That then allowed him to have space to have the dancers and the folks who couldn't really afford, Pilates. But I think, we all seem to have this image of him as just like not wanting to make money, of being this, completely altruistic person. And
Yes.
we look at the pricing and we go, but he was only charging $5 for a class, but that's $75 in today's US dollars.
There you go.
And then I look at kind of the finances of how we run our Pilates businesses, and I started questioning things like, why do we only sell private sessions and classes? Why do we only sell packages of 5 or 10? Like, who started that? I've been doing that for 32 years. Do I know why? No, because the studio I worked in before that did that, right? So then I started kind of reaching out of the Pilates community, especially at the beginning of COVID, because I realized I really needed to know more about business. And that wasn't happening. And those discussions were simply not happening in the Pilates community. We're still infighting about classical versus contemporary.
Right.
And so when I started going, like, the first questions people would ask were things like,
so who do you serve and how do you serve them?
Okay.
Not what kind of equipment do you have, not anything like that. Just who do you serve?
The right
and how
questions.
And how do you serve them? And I started realizing that in Pilates, we actually don't do that. We tend to not niche down at all.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to sort of feel like there's so few clients out there for us that we need to kind of hold on to everyone that we have and work with them, whether we like them or not. Right? Because we're all on those Pilates forums online. And what are we hearing in those Pilates forums? Like, do you have clients who come in that just make you exhausted by the end of the day? Oh, I'm taking this client who has MS. I've never worked with anybody with that before. Can you give me some ideas? And I started to think, if I talk to a trademark attorney because I need tax help, the trademark attorney doesn't offer to help me with my taxes. The trademark attorney refers me to 3 or 4 of her friends who do tax law.
Yes.
and who would be a good fit for that. And then I started thinking, we actually never do that in Pilates, right? We're never like, oh, like I right now teach private in terms of my private clientele, right? Because I do business to business as well as to consumer.
Yes.
In terms of consumer, I'm women over 50 with osteoporosis and chronic pain. Now,
Yes.
a few years ago, I was diastasis recti and postnatal because I was in Tribeca, actively teaching in a studio with a ridiculous amount of high net worth young families with multiple children and a lot of women with diastasis recti and blown out pelvic floors, right? So that became a thing.
Yes.
When I was at Parrot Key for 4 years, it was whoever showed up. And their issues. But, sometimes that became a weird little specialization in aging guitarists and bassists, right? Who were all twisted and torqued from years and years of performing, sleeping in bad hotels, being on tour buses, and not dealing with their body.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I started to think lately, like, why don't we do that? Why are we always just attacking each other? And every other day, I'm even reading from like established Pilates teachers who have written multiple books and do all the things. They'll come on and say things like, wow, the lack of support from our Pilates community today is really having me not feeling good. And I started thinking, like, why are we like this? What is so dysfunctional in what we do? And I feel like part of it is that we've never been handed down a great business model. We really haven't.
Yes.
And we all seem to have this idea that we shouldn't be making a lot of money teaching Pilates. And when people do make a lot of money teaching Pilates, we all attack them, right? So when Mari Windsor got her QVC deal way back in the day, everyone was like, ugh, how'd that happen?
Yes.
Well, is she really that good? Like, whatever. She was out in LA. She had clients who had those connections. They connected her to QVC, and to this day, people still will say to me, I started doing Pilates because of Mari's, DVDs or Mari's VHS tapes.
I've had guests on here that say that are established teachers. Absolutely.
Right. So, she made the money and happy for her. Club Pilates is another thing that, polarized the community in this weird way. But should we be scared of a franchise model? Why should we be scared because a woman decided to put a solid franchise model together and sell it? And then we were all like, well, how dare she? Oh, and it's on like Allegros and Bozus and TRXs. That's not real Pilates. And I was like, actually, I went and didn't have a great class, but I didn't take that as indicative of the chain.
Right.
Right. And even though I'm a classical teacher and I'm seeing that Gratz equipment, I also, am happy. Like, I'm not averse to an, Allegro Reformer TRX Bozu workout, like for my own body, especially if it's 4 blocks from my apartment. Not a big deal, but, but suddenly everyone was like, how dare they do that?
So you
isn't this what Joe wanted?
Well, that's exactly it. So you're attributing that to just a bad sense of business acumen in general, so that instead we point fingers and sulk when someone else has figured it out.
Exactly. Instead of getting our shit together and figuring it out. I'm also seeing a lot of posts lately kind of questioning, Pilates business coaches or Pilates teachers like myself who maybe have moved into the B2B kind of business coaching and helping teachers pivot and deal with their online stuff. And they're like, well, if they were so busy and successful in their private practice, they wouldn't have time to do the coaching. And I'm like, wait, complete, again, misunderstanding. No, I am perfectly fine with my private clients. And I have, a waiting list on private clients. That's not the issue. The issue is that I decided at some point to make it part of my business model to give Pilates teachers some of the training that I had to go outside of our community for and spend a lot of time and money on, because I think it's important that we look at different models of doing business. I think online programs are a great way of doing business, right? Time delimited programs. And, you know, I feel like as Pilates teachers, we do that for our clients in the studio all the time, right? Don't you have folks who are like, they've got a marathon coming up, they're got a race coming up, they're getting married, they're going away and they want their arms to look better, like whatever it is.
Right,
like
whatever their goals, yeah.
Right. And we're like, yeah, we could do that for you. We've got like 6 weeks now. And internally we create a plan for that, right? Where we're like, yeah, we want to do that. And then, so, you know, I run like 6-week osteoporosis programs.
So,
you know,
Lynda, so the problem is that we think about these things, but then we don't think, how do we scale it? If it worked for this person, why can't I bundle this nicely and then sell it to more people? Like, we don't think about that piece of the puzzle. We're so focused on the person in front of us.
Right.
But I would have to say, though,
that's the business piece.
That's the business piece. So when I was a trainer for personal trainers at Big Box Gym, I came across 2 types of people. Personal trainers who are really, really good at their craft, head-wise, knowledge-wise, that didn't want to sell anything. And then they eventually kind of petered out or fizzled out, and then they left. And then those who were really charismatic and good salespeople and were mediocre trainers. And they were trainer of the month. And they're the ones that got promoted to be assistant manager and manager. And they were okay as a trainer, but they're really good business-wise. So I felt like it was my job to find people and level up their business acumen or level up their training, and just so that everyone can level up instead of it staying here and then here and then here and then here sort of thing. So now that in the Pilates world, I see a lot of that as well, where there's people who are totally fine to just take care of, 4 one-on-ones, 5 one-on-ones a day and then call it a day. And then there's other people who want to conquer the world and they want to have an empire and a storefront and online, whatever. I think both are fine, but I think there needs to be something said for just recognizing the opportunities that we have in front of us and how do we maximize those.
Definitely. And getting out of the idea that it's either just kind of an online studio, right? As opposed to a brick and mortar studio, that we just kind of transfer that model online. Right. I mean, look, that's what we were all taught when we went through our Pilates training, right? Like what was the big goal, right? You were basically going to work for somebody else. And then maybe you got enough money and you got some apparatus, right? And then maybe you opened your own space and then you taught for yourself, like until you basically couldn't anymore because you were fried. And then you start the cycle again where you either have to bring people in to teach for you or run teacher training programs and grow your own. And that's it. That's and what I'm seeing, but the issue now that I'm seeing is, Pilates teachers now, like in Manhattan, where, it's ridiculously expensive to live, are making hourly the same amount of money that I was paying my teachers in the 90s. In the 90s. Okay. There's something very wrong with that. There's something very wrong with the fact that Pilates teachers now think that, $30 to $50 an hour is the best they're ever going to do. That they question. You don't know the number of private messages that I've got from teachers going, how are you charging $160 for an online private? Like, is that really a thing? And I'm like, it's a thing. Because I know what I'm doing and because my clients get results. And that's when I started realizing that that's what we need to be focusing on. Like all of this infighting of who's better and what equipment you use and who trained you. And, you go on Pilates teachers' websites, they have like their entire fucking resume on the website, right? I did continuing ed with this person at this studio and this person. And I'm like, something, your clients do not give a shit. They do not care. You know what they care about? My back is hurting and I wish to continue playing golf.
Yes. Yes or
So
no? Can you help me?
can you do that for me?
Mhm.
Can you do that for me? Can you get me to a place in like 4 weeks when golf season starts that I can play a game and not have my back go out? How about that? I'll pay you for that. That's what I want, right?
Right.
Or or whatever that looks like for your specific clientele. They're paying for your knowledge, and what they're paying for is for your ability to help them reach their goals faster and easier than they could on their own. Because people can do Pilates on their own. There's I've got a YouTube channel with tons of basic tutorials. You want to learn how to stabilize your pelvis? I have a tutorial on that. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
all of that, there's tons of workouts for free. You can go to the library, you can get a book, you can order one from Amazon. You can learn to do Pilates on your own. So for anyone who thinks that we are like necessary item, people in the world, we're really not. I mean, let's face it.
Yeah,
We are
exactly.
we're offering a premium service, a premium product, and we can basically get people to their goals quicker.
Right.
That's what coaches get paid for. That's what teachers get paid for. That's what Pilates teachers and personal trainers get paid for.
Right.
Um, and I
That
was
high level.
also
Sorry.
Oh, hang on. I was also, listening to the convo that you had with Kara and Jenna, the other day, and
Mhm.
I was, because I'm also an ACE certified personal trainer,
Mhm. Okay.
and I teach kettlebells, and I do heavyweight work myself, 3 to 4 times a week. I
Yes.
like to lift heavy objects. I think all women, all people should lift heavy objects.
Agreed. Yes.
But again, if you're more goal focused for your clients, then you can kind of bring in whatever you want.
Yes, exactly. And that's where I landed. Like what is your podium performance? I always say, right? Like if your podium performance is playing with your grandkids on the weekend and not being sore for 3 days from Monday to Wednesday, that's your podium performance. If your podium performance is going to row, in some rowing competition and getting gold, that's your podium performance. So whatever your goal is, that's where we're going to, and wherever I need to take you in this whole clinic, that's where we're going to get you to your goal.
Right. And I would love to also see more of, I am so glad that's your goal. And I could work with you, but that's not really my wheelhouse.
Mhm.
But, Valerie down the street
Yes.
works with folks like you all the time, and I think she could really help you. Because that's the other
Yes.
sad thing is, as I'm watching the interviews, is I'm hearing all of these Pilates teachers who are in communities where there are Pilates studios all around them, and nobody
Hmm.
talks to each other.
No one talks to one another. Right.
Like, what the fuck? It's not like we can all serve all the clients who need us. I can't. You can't. We
Right.
can't. There are like billions of people in this world who could use some Pilates. We can't serve them
Absolutely.
all. We cannot.
Well, one of the questions I always ask people is like, do you have a network? Who do you refer people to? Well, two questions I ask. One is, what is your niche? Who is your ideal client? And two is, do you have a network? So do you have a chiro do you refer to? Do you have a specialist in X, Y, and Z that you refer people to? When I was in personal training and people came to me for contest prep, I would hand them off to someone else because I don't touch contest prep. I don't think bodybuilding is my thing. I could care less about it.
Right.
If I'm an athlete, come talk to me. Pregnant person, pre-postnatal, I did a bit of that, with my, obviously with my wife and kids and that sort of thing at the time. So I understand a bit of that. If they're athletes, then I'll take it. But other than that, like I'll just disperse out to everybody because that elevates our level of expertise, perceived level of expertise when we know when to refer to others as well.
Yes. And, but then it gets all weird and complicated in the Pilates community because then it's like, well, what kind of equipment do they have in the studio?
Mm,
Right.
right.
Which for me at this point, like, it doesn't matter to me that much. I mean, I grew up, I did my first Pilates at SUNY Purchase when I was an undergrad with Steve Giordano.
Okay.
and Nancy Allison. And Steve basically built most of the equipment for that studio. You know, Steve's company ultimately became Peak Pilates.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So I kind of grew up with that equipment. During the lawsuit years,
Hmm.
I I left the classical Pilates community, went all
Yes.
balance body, did teacher training for physical mind.
Okay.
Just went, have fun with that.
Hmm.
I'm not dealing with you.
Yeah.
And went and
Just so disenchanted with whatever everything that was happening, you just left.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I was like, you know something? You guys suck. You're sending out cease and desist letters, like, you know. And I kept in touch with a few people, like Alicia, you know, who I work with, who I work for at Real Pilates, who were also trying to kind of be out of that, you know, out
Yes.
of that craziness. And I just couldn't deal with it. Now, did my client were my clients any worse off because they were on balanced body equipment versus Grots? No,
No, that
actually they
comes down
weren't.
to it comes
They,
down to the teacher, right?
yeah, they were doing fine. They were getting good Pilates. We were doing teacher training. We won awards, you know, did that whole thing. I had a studio in a Gold's Gym, actually, speaking of
Hmm.
speaking of that marriage
Yes.
of the two. And and then, you know, I sold everything and moved to Turks and Caicos.
Oh, did you?
Yes, I did. And then I ended up on Parrot Key for 4 years.
Okay.
And then, you know, came back to New York.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
So it's
how'd you
been
end
a
up in
journey.
Turks and Caicos with Pilates?
So we were going through, you know, a not great life moment, in both personally and business wise. And I had a client who was a patron of ballet and of the arts, and her husband owned a home on Providenciales, the main island in Turks and Caicos.
Wow.
She invited me over. I taught a physical mind mat teacher training to the teachers who were on the island. And while we were there, my husband and I both got job offers.
Wow.
So I looked at Tony and I was like, hey, you know, I'm like, if we don't do this, we're going to be sitting here in this like Center Hall Stone Colonial in Bala Cynwyd, Pennsylvania, which is fine for many people. I'm not
Right.
denigrating it. Like, we're
Good
going to be sitting
premises.
here 10 years from now being like, why are we still in the suburbs?
Yes.
And so we did it. We just jumped. We sold everything. We moved to the Caribbean. It was
Wow.
fabulous, actually. And then, you know, my parents were getting sick, and I kind of needed to be back here to deal
Yeah.
with that. And we came back. But now I do the sourcing of teachers for Como hotels or for Como Shambhala. And so I still, you know, maintain those
Those
connections.
connections. Yes.
But that really showed me, I mean, working at Parrot Key specifically showed me what high end guests are really paying for
What are they paying
when
for?
they're going away. And I'm going to tell you what they're paying for. They're paying
Okay.
for privacy, like
Yes.
real privacy, like there is no paparazzi,
Hmm.
like single person we don't know who tries to book a room on the same weekend someone high profile is coming, doesn't get a reservation
Yes.
because you could be paparazzi and we don't know. So
Yes.
you can come another time. How about that? um,
Yes.
we saw creating that kind of safe space where
In a true
folks
sense.
knew, in
Yes.
a true sense, where folks knew that they could walk around in ripped up sweatpants and nobody was going to care, where their kids weren't going to get, you know, talked to by strangers, where when they went to the spa, any treatment that they got, and I did both fitness training and Pilates there, that they were going to be safe and they weren't going to get hurt. Like all of this is implicit in that.
Mm.
And for that, people will pay $5,000 a day or
Yes.
$10,000 a day. or
Yes.
more,
Right.
because you're offering that. Now, the niche of people who are going to do that is, of course, smaller, but that's
Yes.
okay
It's still
because you don't need
transferable though.
you don't need 100,000 people.
Right. Yes. Yes. But the
You need
principles,
50.
like you're saying, the principles what you're saying are the transferable pieces, or we're talking about psychological safety. We're talking about emotional safety. You're scaling that down for our everyday people in New York or Mississauga or wherever, but still trying to create that same sense of what they really, really need.
Right, right. And making sure that they feel safe and making sure that they feel taken care of and making sure that they're really getting, the knowledge that they need. One of the things that I'm starting to do now, like in Pilates Profit Lab, is I'm bringing in experts from outside, from my women's networking groups, from the
Yes.
business coaching groups that I'm in. I have a lawyer coming on in a couple of weeks, and she actually specializes she has online pre-done packs of liability waivers, the things you need for your websites, contracts for subscription programs, and
Yes.
all of that bundled together for fitness, health, and service professionals online.
Amazing.
So,
Yeah.
so she's going to come on and she's going to talk to everybody in the group about, what really the basics of what everybody should have in place to be legally protected in your online business. I'm going
Yes.
to bring my CPA in. We're going to talk about the tax basics and really what you need to be looking for. I'm going to bring in. I've got I don't do a lot on Clubhouse because I'm an Android phone user, but
Mhm.
I have a woman in my network who's a Clubhouse expert. And I'm sure that a lot of my Pilates teachers have questions about it. I'm going to bring her in and let her teach on that. Um,
Fantastic.
I think, it's really incumbent that we sort of give each other all the support that we can. And I'm not, you know, Pilates continuing education at this point, there's just so much of it out there now. Like we've all done it.
It's
I
really
even
growing.
got that way. Like when I first started Pilates Teacher Mastermind,
Okay.
the program, it was just continuing education.
Mhm.
So basically what I offered was, basically 4 hours of CEU a month, right? Where
Yes.
you got 2 workshops like every 2 weeks, and it was a membership program. And it was not very expensive, and I got, a few signups, not so much.
Mhm.
After I did about, 24 workshops, I was like, I don't really know what else I have to tell you. Like we've got the
Yes.
whole classical system. I brought Greg Udan in. We did motor learning and biomechanics and working with neurological disorders. We've got pre and postnatal. We've got diastasis and hernia. We've got back pain, neck pain, shoulder pain. I was like, I don't know,
What's
what else
next?
there is at this point that I can really meaningfully teach you in terms of Pilates continuing education. Then I started to go out and deal with my own business education. And then I was like, oh, okay. There's a whole lot of things
Yes.
here that really need to be taught to Pilates teachers. And they will probably more trust a Pilates teacher who has
Mhm.
done it. That's the thing. Like all the stuff I teach is the stuff I've done.
Yes.
Right.
Well, and
Um,
it's not only trusting them, but understanding that there's still this connecting point that you need. So if I'm learning copyright or trademarks or ethics or marketing, whatever, I could learn it from somewhere else, but I still need to translate it to Pilates.
right.
So it's one thing to trust the person, but it's another thing to just have someone who can conveniently translate it for me.
Exactly. And that, what I always make comments when people are questioning Pilates business coaching and all of this stuff. And I'm like, no, no, no. You have to understand it's just like when people pay us for Pilates. Okay. They could do it themselves. They could dig through YouTube. They could go online. They could read all the books. They could probably put together a program for themselves. It's going to take them a while. They're
Mhm.
going to have probably injure themselves at some point in the process, but they'll do it, right? It's
Right, right.
doable. But we
Yes.
make it easier for them because we're like, hey, we totally know how to do this, how to modify for this, whatever. come on in and we'll get you set up much faster and easier than you would on your own. That's
exactly,
all.
yes. So when I was teaching these teachers for personal training, I would say that what we're selling people is time.
Right. Right. But we're selling time and we're selling expertise. Period.
Yes.
End of discussion. And that's when I really started realizing how much teachers needed to level up. And what's great though is that, I have one teacher in my group who started out at the beginning of COVID. She's been with me since July, right, in Pilates Teacher Mastermind. She had no online presence, no online clients.
Yes.
Had never done any of it, just nothing. And then I just, did a private with her this past weekend. She now has her second online client. She is now making recurring income monthly. Right. Because she's setting up on a subscription model as opposed to just paying per session model. So she knows now what's going to come in every month. And now she just has to basically lather, rinse, and repeat.
Absolutely.
To get the new clients. And that's all it is. And I always remind teachers, like, realistically, I handle about 6 private clients because 2 of them like to do 3 times a week. Right. I can't handle many more private clients than that. So realistically, we're all, I think, kind of walking into this thinking we need hundreds of clients.
No, right, exactly.
And we're never going to get them. You need 5 or 10, maybe,
yes. Right.
Maybe,
right.
5 or
exactly.
10.
Yeah.
That's all you need. Now, if you're charging $50 an hour, you might need more than that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other thing to be thinking about is those of us who have gotten to a place where we feel like we give the value for the higher price point, right, are we're kind of doing a little bit more, right?
Yes. Can I ask you a kind of a technical Pilates question?
Totally.
I've had people talking about semi-privates, kind of Joe's open gym type format. Mm-hmm. What's your thoughts on people building a format for their studios around that open gym sort of concept? Or
I think that could be a great format. And frankly, I think that's one of the ways Joe made it affordable, right?
Yes.
So if you're doing some training and you've got some of your dancers and some of your folks or, whoever he had in the studio who needed more hours, who needed to work. This is not like new. My business coach, Kelly Roach, she was an NFL cheerleader before she got into business. And she came from very little money and a very working class family. And she put herself through dance school by cleaning the dance studio. Mm-hmm. Right? That's how she did it because they couldn't afford to send her and she wanted it. And I'm from what I can tell, that was Joe's idea with kind of the open gym and the open studio, right? Was we are charging a lot of money. And I know we look at it and we're like $5 or $10, but remember that's like 75 to $100 now. We're going to make a way for those folks to be able to come. And that way, if other folks are still wanting to learn and they want to observe and they want to show them what they're doing, that's great. And then it makes something kind of affordable for everybody. Now, that requires, though, having that base that he did of your higher end clients who are paying the money, like, Candace Bergen and the Vanderbilts and, like I mentioned to you in our chat this morning. He had a studio at Bendel's.
Right.
All right. Yes. Like one that is a specific high net worth population of ladies that are going to go to Bendel's. They're going to do their Pilates. They're going to come downstairs and have a little lunch or tea, and then go meet with their personal shopper, right?
Right.
And kind of get that thing done. He was high end spying it before that was a thing. Right. But I think the other problem now too is that, because I feel like as a Pilates community, we're not And I don't even think we all need to be like in tune. Like people keep saying this to me, oh, but we all need to be like in tune with each other and really love each other. And I'm like, no, we don't. We can all respectfully agree to disagree. But even the high end, even the big box gyms, right, that have brought in Pilates and are very public about their Pilates, every single teacher I talk to who teaches in one of those gyms tells me that the Pilates studio is way in the back of the gym.
Yep.
That they're still expected to be walking the floor to sell,
Yes.
that they're still only getting paid $15 an hour, which in New York City is minimum wage, to teach the first session, even though it's part of the value add of the paid membership. So the big box gym is getting paid anyway, you know, and once again, we all kind of suck up not being our full, awesome Pilates teacher selves in all of these environments.
Yes.
And then from our training, it's like, but you can't do that unless you're teaching in your own studio. Or if you really have the balls to bring in a lot of really good people. Like that's where so when I was moving back to New York, I was reaching out to, you know, different Pilates studios and I was like, you know, look, like I can't come in as a lower level teacher at this point. Like I just can't. Like you know, and all these people came back to me and were like, but I've got other teachers who have been in the studio for longer. How could we bring you in as a master teacher? Like we just couldn't do that. And Alicia was like, you're a master teacher.
Yeah.
We will bring you in as a master teacher.
Right.
So come on down to Tribeca. And, you know, we've got people for you to work with and we can really use you. Because for her, that wasn't a scary thing. That was you know, no.
Yes.
Yeah, you might have been in the studio longer. You've been teaching for 5 years. She's been teaching for 20. You know, it's just a different thing. But I think, you know, if we can all really look at our niches, like when I get people in Pilates Profit Lab for the workshops and I ask them about their ideal client avatars and who they serve, it's like they don't want a niche. Like, why would I want to niche? And then I'll go through all of the, all of the examples of where niching makes you more money, like in medicine, right? I mean, a neonatal neurosurgeon is making more than a neurosurgeon, is making more than a general surgeon, is making more than a general practitioner. Now, are there that many patients for that neonatal neurosurgeon? It doesn't matter because they don't need a whole lot of patients. They can charge a lot more money for what they are doing. They are highly niched in, can work fewer hours and walk away with more money. Is that a bad thing? No, it's not. No, it's not. And I think that if we all kind of owned our specialties, then we'd be much more open to the networking, right?
Absolutely.
If we went to other studios and explored other Pilates equipment and other teachers and other things, then we would have a network where we wouldn't have to work with clients we weren't prepared for. Clients, you know, we didn't know. I mean, I've seen clients who were hurt by working with teachers who basically didn't know how to deal with them. I've seen women with osteoporosis who were given Tower and crushed a vertebrae, right? Because your compressive thoracic flexion is really what somebody with osteoporosis needs, not. Did the teacher mean to hurt them? Absolutely not. I know they didn't, but I know that they didn't really know what to do for osteoporosis.
Yes.
But felt like they had to take that client anyway.
Right.
Because they couldn't send them up the road to me or they couldn't do whatever. And we get into this mentality of lack that we have to take anyone who comes or anything, or we're never going to make any money, or we're never going to, you know, and I still see people online asking about how much they should charge.
Right.
How many things do I...
That speaks to just, well, one, people like not understanding their niche and what they're most passionate about. And two, when people don't have a vision for themselves, they latch onto someone else's vision. And that's when someone could be in a studio working forever at a minimum wage because they're building someone else's vision. They really haven't crafted what that means for themselves. And then taking time to really work on their own business instead of working in someone else's business.
Right. And
Right.
then we
So,
also don't look at it like people will say that they don't look at the time they spend working on their own businesses as necessarily valuable
valuable.
time.
Right.
We're like, that's that time suck that we like have to deal with all of this
Hmm.
back end stuff or
Right.
deal with this other training stuff or whatever it is. And I'm like, actually it's not a time suck, it's part of running your business. And
Yes.
your rates should reflect that. So if you have to spend 5 hours a week working on your business, then when you're sitting down, like I tell people, when you're figuring out your pricing, you first need to figure out how much money you need to make or want to make,
Right.
how many hours you want to work,
Hmm.
and then
And
what
work
that's going to look
backward.
like in terms of how much you need to be taking in on an hour. Now, that can be how you price your one-on-ones. It could also be a combination of classes and programs and online shit and whatever else you're doing,
Right.
to make up that difference. But you don't set your pricing by going on a random Facebook group and asking people
Yeah.
how much they're
True.
charging
Yeah.
for a service, that or how much you should charge. And obviously what I'm going to charge in Lower Manhattan is going to be very different
Yes.
than what I would be charging if I lived in a different area. Um,
Absolutely.
but
Those
none
are
of
like those
that
are
was taught to me.
no, and I think those were a lot like, I mean, one of the things I wanted to touch on was that real fear versus imposter syndrome. The inverse of that is just the thought that if you don't understand your own self-worth, you have to look outside to compare to get a sense of relatively where you lie, right? So
Right.
if I know there's some quote unquote elite teachers I've had that are on here that teach in somewhere in Central Europe that are charging a third of what I charge, and I think that they're a 10 times better teacher than me.
Right.
You know
Right.
what I mean?
But
And
at the
they're
end of the
fine with
day,
that.
your clients feel that your service is valuable enough for that, and that's what matters. Like, that's the thing, we
Yes.
get into all of these things like, am I as good as that person, am I, but they're only charging this, but they're in like in the middle of nowhere, and that's
Yes.
what people are paying.
Right.
And we get into this whole competition thing before we even get started. Like, we basically shut ourselves down before we're
Before.
even out of the
Yes.
gate.
Yes.
um and it's really, like, and then we get scared about scaling because we've all watched so many like bad studio things happen, right? We've
Yes.
we've all heard those stories, watched them happen in studios we've been to, and then we kind of get scared to do that.
Of
I
course.
mean, I'm fully aware that if I grow Pilates Teacher Mastermind VIP much bigger than it is now, 20 people is about the max that I can handle on my own.
The quality
Um,
declines.
well, it won't, because I'm going to hire people.
Right. But if you're like you reach that critical mass, but then you
Right.
keep stretching out
Right.
of greed or out of whatever, then it gets diluted.
Exactly. And that's when the network has to happen.
Yes.
Like, and if we're all by ourselves, not having any kind of network, that just doesn't work.
Right.
I'm even starting to do that now in the VIP group, is basically bringing all of the members in for interviews. So the whole group has a sense of who specializes in what, since
Mhm.
we're all teaching online now, because I would like the group to be at the first thought for referral.
Yes.
Right. And I would
Right.
also like the same thing in the free group, in the Pilates, Profit Lab group,
Mhm.
that, I don't want it to be, I'm very strict about, no promotions, no whatever. I know people see me promoting my stuff all over the place. It's generally in groups where I'm allowed to do it.
Mhm.
I don't post my consumer stuff in Pilates teacher groups. I don't,
Yeah,
you
just
pick
like
and
yeah.
choose where you go.
Right.
But creating like safe space, creating just space where people can ask a question. The stupid questions are the ones we don't ask. But asking questions and then being smacked down. And I'm going to admit, I'm going to be the first person to admit that I've done that in the past.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That I haven't always been in this place where I am now. I have
Right.
not. This has been a journey of 3 decades, right?
Right.
But we have to, it has to be done. Like, we have to be able to own what we do in the world as something of value, of the service and help that we give to our clients as something of value, and that all of us who are teaching Pilates right now are offering something of value to our clients. We don't all need to be able to do it all.
Right.
We just need to figure out who we serve and go forward with that. You know, I feel like, you know, I have a Pilates Profit Lab quick start within VIP, and it's basically 10 weeks. That's the nothing. I've got nothing online at all to, I've got a program and a group.
Yes, 0 to movement. Yes.
Because I think the best, literally, and I think you found this as well, is one of the best ways to kind of get what you're doing out there is by creating a smaller group, right? You create your private group, people come into your group, and then they can hear what you have to say. And then I don't have to be all over social media all the damn time, you know, doing stuff. I can be talking to the people I need to talk to. So I've got a consumer group, I've got a Pilates teacher group. And
yeah, lovely.
Yeah.
So where do we find you in our last 4 minutes here? Like,
so you can find me at lindalippin.com.
Okay.
Spelled just like my name. All the programs are on there. You can sign up for my email list on there. You can join Pilates Profit. Okay, and you can join Pilates Profit Lab on there as well. Since we're dealing with mostly Pilates teachers, I also have a consumer group on Facebook called Strong Women Over 50. Because I am now I am now in my demographic.
Yes, you're officially my demographic. Nice.
My demographic has always kind of been women over the age of 40 with some kind of chronic pain or issue. But now, you know, I'm 54 with some kind of chronic pain or issues.
Right. There you go.
So here we are.
Yes.
Full circle.
So here's my question then. Who do you refer people to who want to work with men?
I typically right now will send them over to Daniel Lyon, who's one of my colleagues at Real, who, you know, wrote the book Pilates for Men. But I do also for any teacher who's teaching online, I you know, I have a list of the people who, even if I don't know personally, I can just tell via client testimonials by what they're doing online that they know what they're doing, and I'll just send people over. I mean, you know, one of my VIP members asked, one of my new VIP members asked last week if I had somebody who could handle postnatal diastasis recti with a lumbar disc herniation, right? Because that was not her wheelhouse. And even though I actually could handle that and have handled that well in the past, I was like, you know, I sent her one classical teacher, right? My client Karen at Real, but I also sent her to Allison at Pilates Pregnancy Impact, right? Because she has also been serving that community for years. Different style, more contemporary, but still really good. And I was like, here you go. Like whatever way she wants to go with this, these people can handle it.
Amazing. That's exactly what we need to do.
Right. Yeah. More of that.
More of that. Amazing. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you to our people in the comment section. Someone saying they love Daniel. And that's, I guess, Alicia right there saying thank you to us. Pilates from Scotland, she said, I wrote a piece for 360 Pilates about the Joe's Gym. Meet me at Joe's Gym. So we were talking about that earlier. Emmett Younger was on, and he spoke about the semi-private and really broke down the nuts and bolts of how to get that going in your gym. So that was a really great core conversation if you get a chance to look back at that one. And other than that, it's just amazing comments here. And thank you so much, Lynda, for your time. Learned so much just about the business of Pilates. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. It was totally fun.
Absolutely.
I was really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to...
I do 2 to 3 podcast interviews like a week at this point.
Okay.
And this was the one that I was like, oh, I'm going to be on Core Conversations with Martin. Yay.
It was great. It's so good. All right. Thank you. I will send you the replay later. And
sounds great.
yes, thank you so much for your time. I really do
Thank
appreciate it.
you.
All right.
Talk to you
Take care.
soon.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.